In this lesson, I'll be covering gesture.
Gesture drawing.
Gesture
Drawing. Gestures. They are difficult. And after a few months of doing research, something clicked. I found a way to make gestures even simpler than the way I was doing them before. As we continue, I'll prove to you how simple I believe drawing gestures really is, what you're probably doing wrong while drawing gestures, and how I do it, so that any pose you see becomes nothing but putty in your hands. Before we jump into the juicy dinner meats of gesture, let's start with something more bland. There are 6 different parts of the human body I really want us to pay attention to. The head, the neck, the ribs, the pelvis, the arms, and the legs. These are important points on the body that give our lines guidance during gesture drawing. You don't need to overthink these points while doing gestures, but just remember that they are there and that they do exist. Another thing I'd like to highlight is the words flow and energy of a pose. What do they actually mean or represent? Yeah fam, I don't know either. So first, I begin with the placement of the head. It's just a starting point for your gesture. Try not to overthink it. I use these 3D lines to know where my gesture is facing. This is the same type of lines that I use for foreshortening the limbs on my gesture. Next, I want to look for the placement of the neck. I tend to imagine it like the beginning of a chain necklace. Then observe either side of the neck and just follow in that direction. There isn't really a right or wrong way when doing the neck. As long as I understand the line that I'm putting down, I think I'm good to go. Now, we're gonna look for the next line on this gesture. And in order to do that, I need to look for the placement of the ribs. See how it curves in this direction? This is the stretch of the body. So all I'm gonna do is follow that curve. Nothing more, nothing less. When drawing gestures, you aren't drawing every bone, every muscle, every bump on the body. We're not drawing the details or outlines of this person here. It's just a simple, basic drawing. Now that we've got the stretch side of the ribs figured out, we can build on the opposing side of the ribs. I like to call it the squash side. So here in this pose, I'd place the first squashed line like this. This would be the direction that the back of the ribs are going in. This next line I plan on placing down is the line that connects the ribs to the pose's pelvis. This small little curve really gives me the full throttle of which way my gesture is tilting. It also helps me understand where I want my next line to be for my gesture. You can kinda see the system at play already in these steps. Next is the pelvis or hips. Okay, great. So after getting my head, neck, ribs, and pelvis done, we are now halfway through with our gestures. Good job, us. Alright, let's move on to the legs. So the first line from the pelvis, we curve it down just like the stretch of the ribs. Usually, I'll stop at the knee and then curve the next line in the opposite direction to show the bottom half of the leg. If you don't know how long the entire leg should be as a whole, then just measure the entire leg from the pelvis to the shoulders. If it's longer, then consider your legs too long. If it's shorter, then consider your legs too short. The human body is actually pretty interesting that way. I used to use triangles for the feet, but then I realized doing it like this is not the best way. Reason for that is, feet aren't triangles. They're more like rectangles or squares. So, that being a factor in my now evolving brain, I decided to do them more like this. And for me, it works on every single foot angle. It's my go-to foot. As long as I can understand what I'm doing on my gesture drawing and every single line that I'm putting down, then I'm doing it right. Now arms. I usually look for the shoulder or where it begins, and then I just use a single stretch line just like the ribs and the upper leg, and I just follow in the angle that it's going in. Remember, I'm not doing every detail on the body, just where it's going. Then the forearm, same as the lower leg. And finally, the hand. Now, hands. I actually like to try to draw out the fingers. I know it won't look good, but it's still practice with fingers and palms without putting too much effort into it. It's not supposed to look like a final picture or anything, it's just a simple pose. Do the same technique for the other arm and hand, and you're all done. There's our gesture. This is the approach I use when it comes to gesture drawing. I think it's a pretty easy system. Well, at least easier than trying to feel it out or following the flow of the gesture or something. Let's do some more practice, but before that, I do want to say that if you want to learn more in depth about gestures and the way that I learned to do them, I recommend this godly book, Figure Drawing, Design and Invention by Michael Hampton. I feel like when it comes to gesture drawing, this is a Bible. Now, let's go on and practice together.